Hey, Professor. Good evening. Happy holidays to you. Hope you and yours are well. Know you glad class is over with. You can kick back and chill for a little bit. Wanted to reach out and get this video portion of my assignment to you. Um, if it's cool with you, I took some notes that I got on my screen and I'll just speak on it in that sense. I kind of just wrote something out. Hopefully this will pass for you. So, as I come to the end of exploring different counseling theories, I've been thinking a lot about what it truly means to be a helper. For me, especially someone who's lived through addiction, survived it, and now sits on the other side trying to guide people through the same battlefield. For me, this isn't just a job or a career path. It truly feels like something that I was called to do. There were years in my life when I wasn't sure that I would make it. And now that I have, I feel a responsibility, actually an honor, to do what I'm doing. I actually believe that it's my calling, to use that experience to help others find their way. And my role as a helper, first and foremost, excuse me, as I see it, first and foremost, is to show up as a real human being. You know what I mean? Not just somebody pretending to have all the answers. I remember when I first interviewed for a position with the Office of Employment Development, and there were other candidates for the position, and they asked me what I brought to the table that was different. And the first thing came to mind, which is something that I stand on, is authenticity. I've been in those trenches. I can definitely relate and understand what my clients are going through, having been there, been in full-blown addiction, having gone to prison, done a lot of the things that my clients have and experienced a lot of the pain and suffering that they have as well. I'm not coming with just book answers. I'm coming with both book logic as well as true experiences. And, I believe that that's something that truly helps. Again, like I said, it's not just like someone acting above the client, but more so somebody who understands that pain and confusion, the shame and fear, and eventually the hope that comes with trying to change their life. My biggest responsibility, I believe, is to create a space, where clients will feel safe enough to be honest about what's really going on with them. I know how hard it is to let somebody in, especially when you spent so many years hiding parts of yourself just to survive. If I can give a client a place where they feel seen instead of judged, believed instead of dismissed, and understood instead of misunderstood, that's the foundation that I want to build on with every person who sits across from me. What I expect from my clients is simple, just to show up as they are. I don't expect immediate motivation, perfect honesty, or even instant commitment, because, when I was going through my struggles, I definitely didn't bring it to the table immediately. It took me close to 2 decades to get my head out of my ass and just realize that I didn't want to do it anymore and really wanted to seek help. I remember what it felt like when I wasn't even sure if I wanted recovery. So if someone could come into the room and be willing to talk even just a little bit, that's enough to start for me. All I just ask is that they allow themselves to be open to the possibility of change, even if they don't fully believe in it yet. I'll hold on to that belief for them until they can hold on to it for themselves, just to let them know I'm not speaking down to you or speaking at you. I'm speaking to you, you know what I mean, as a human being, as somebody with compassion that understands and can relate. The relationship that I want to build with my clients, again, is human. It's respectful and it's collaborative. I'm not trying to be the expert that fixes them. I just want that person. I just want to be that dude that walks beside them, helping them sort through the chaos and to find their own strength and direction. Because I know how important it is to have someone who listens without that judgment. You know what I mean? People that will challenge you when you need it and believe in your potential, even on the days when they don't see it in themselves. I try to give my clients the same type of support that I once needed. When I look at the theories, as far as that's concerned, the theories that resonate with me primarily is person-centered therapy. That's at the top of my list because I know firsthand how powerful unconditional positive regard and real empathy can be. being heard and accepted to me is what saved my life before any skill or technique ever did. I definitely work a lot with motivational interviewing. That also fits just naturally with me because I understand what that ambivalence feels like, wanting to change, but at the same time, not wanting to change. And, it's interesting because I was just talking to my clients, actually just yesterday, we were talking about change. And I said, it's real easy to say that you're ready, willing, and able to change, but it's so much that entails that change process. It's so many things that you have to change, in order to fully embrace the recovery process. And, like my mentor told me, you're not even fully engaged and immersed in the recovery process until you got 5 years under your belt. So I'm coming up on 4 and, looking at these 4 years in comparison to the 30 plus that I was out there in the wilderness actively using, it's absolutely amazing for me. And, I like to convey that to my clients, to motivate them and inspire them to say, look, man, if I can do it, I know you can. And, another thing I enjoy is this cognitive behavioral therapy because it gives structure and the concrete tools that clients can use day to day, especially when dealing with those cravings and negative thoughts. They can definitely feel overwhelming. We were talking about triggers a couple of days ago, and I remember a guy saying that he was in a store and a guy dropped a joint and he picked it up and was like, hey man, here you go, you dropped this. And I asked him, I was like, well, why'd you pick it up? He was like, well, the dude who dropped it. I said, but you knew what it was, right? And he feigned ignorance for a minute and then was like, well, yeah, I knew it was a joint, but I'm just, keeping it real, man, giving it back. I said, but that could have been a trigger. Just even seeing that joint on the ground can be a trigger to some people. You took it to the next level and actually picked it up. What if you smelled that good tree, knew it was some fire, and decided to put it in your pocket? Or even the fact that you gave it back. What if you started marinating on that act that you just did, that simple act of kindness, gave you a craving to go out and buy a bag, a bag of dope, or, you start thinking about the cocaine you used to smoke, and you right there at the 7-Eleven, they got it on deck. You could have easily went left with that. So, so I tell them, as far as these triggers, be real keen on them because they can definitely come at a moment's notice, and it's the most subtle nuances, most subtle thing that you can see that I can actually, set you off and send you back down that rabbit hole, But, at the core, what guides me at the end of the day is my own lived experience. My belief that every person can grow, that every story can be rewritten, and every setback can be part of a major comeback story. I've lived that reality. I've been broken and rebuilt myself time and again. I was broken. And I remember being in treatment and at the Helping Up mission, and the facilitator asked me, he said, well, Jabril, what is it? Why have you not embraced this process? And I was like, man, I was just too scared to put in the work because it's a lot of work. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's a process. And I still face challenges to this day. Having been clean since 2018, that's just a drop in the bucket. I got the rest of my life to go through. And, I got 55 behind me. I don't know how many I got in front, but I want to live the rest of them clean and sober and continue to serve, And that's what I feel I do. I've seen how powerful it is when somebody believes in you. And now I try to be that person for others. And, in some, I truly believe that I'm meant to do this work. My past don't weigh me down. You know what I mean? I have no issue with being transparent when questioned about, are you in recovery? Instead of going deep into it, yes, I have lived experience, extensive lived experience. And that's it. I don't owe anybody an explanation. But, my past, like I said, it doesn't weigh me, but instead it grounds me. You know what I mean? It keeps me humble. It allows me to sit with my people in their darkest moments, without flinching. And I believe that combination, heart, history, and healing is what will make me a strong, compassionate, and impactful counselor as I continue to grow in this field. I love what I do. I truly do. I actually spoke at a memorial service night before last for a brother that came into treatment the first week that I started at the program that I'm working at now, and he was on my caseload, and he was a good dude. You know what I mean? We bonded quick, even though we weren't always building, constantly engaging. Outside of our required one-on-ones, and in passing we might chop it up a bit. He was a good man, and I was actually doing a makeup group, and the guys that I was doing the group with that evening wanted to go to the memorial, and they asked me to speak. And, it was really compelling. It really hit deep, because he's not the only client. Well, he's the first client that I've had that I've lost. But I've lost comrades while I was in treatment at the Helping Up mission, good men that inspired me and motivated me. Actually, the brother that put me on the path to getting my recovery coach certification, it put me at the top of the list. Rest in peace, Dave Pope. He relapsed shortly after he got me on, and that hurt deep. I had another good brother that I came through treatment with after he completed the program and was still around in graduate housing. He chose to dabble and wound up overdosing and passed. So, I've seen a lot, both in active addiction, and now I'm experiencing things in active recovery and in this professional field. And I just feel blessed to do what I do. I love it. I'm definitely confident that I'm going to get better with every engagement, every experience. Where I'm at right now is just a stepping stone. I don't know how long I'm going to be there, but for however long it's going to be, a couple of months or a couple of years, I'm going to definitely put in work and keep getting better. And I just want to tilt my crown to you, Queen, for what you shared with me during this semester. I definitely really appreciate it. It was valuable information, and I love you for it. Thank you so much, ma'am. I wish you a happy holiday, and you take care of yourself. Bye.